I love a bob. Everybody knows I love a bob. I think I was born with a bob. But ever since I cut my hair a little bit shorter a couple weeks ago, I've been getting so many comparisons to Gabrielle Union and Breaking All the Rules. I don't see it. But what I do see is that I feel like this bob gives race woman, it gives club woman, it gives that I'm reading the 8 African American newspapers that were published between the year 1891 and 1950. And these women were reading and writing, they were talking about fashion, they were showing off their skill as creative writers, they were exercising their political thought, their thought on society. These black women they were just girls. Like in 1891, there was Ringwood's Afro-American Journal of Fashion, where they had an advice column where they gave advice to black women. Mind you, this was all written by black women. That's how impactful and special it was. They were sharing the latest fashions. They were talking about the latest goss that was going on in the late 19th century. And then you have my favorite, which I talk about all the time, which is the Woman's Era, which was founded in 1894. And this newspaper is really interesting because it started in Boston by black women who were fed up with the way this white man from Missouri was talking about them and decided that we need to come together and we need to talk and we need to join like all the black women clubs across America to talk about what we think. And then The Woman's Voice came out in 1912 and it was written by hairdressers. They were sharing ways to do your hair. They were talking about very like controversial things that you wouldn't think that black women would be talking about in a newspaper in 1912. But you got to think that they didn't have social media. Like reading and writing was their way to communicate with each other, to form these small niche communities. These black women were in turn like the first influencers in a sense. They would talk about so many differing topics. They would talk about class, they would talk about colorism. And then the last one I'll name, which is like really interesting, was called The Half Century, came out in 1916. And this magazine was kind of more for black women who had migrated up north during the Great Migration. It was telling them how to acclimate, how to fit in, and be in community with other black women who were also doing the same things. And I think that's really interesting. And especially the name is notable because half century removed from slavery. A lot of these newspapers and magazines you can easily find online. Some you probably won't be able to find because they're so old, and there's a book called Lady's Pages where the author talks about how she really had to dig to find these magazines and newspapers. I think it's really cool how black women who were coming up in the time that Rayford Logan, who is a historian, considered the nadir, which is the lowest point of black life between the years of 1877 and 1901, they were talking about things that made them happy.